Hey guys, my name is Daniel Fennell, and thank you for watching. I know that my audience is, I'm probably going to be the only one that will ever watch this because there's nothing special about this other than the fact that I am reading through the Bible. So yesterday I read Proverbs chapters 8, 7, and 8, and today I'm reading Proverbs chapter 9 and 10. And just to kind of recap, the book of Proverbs was written by Solomon. Solomon was the son of David, and David, he was a son of Jesse, and this was a book known as a book of wisdom. So there's a lot of wisdom inside of the book of Proverbs, and so we're gonna go right into that. So first of all, my name is Daniel Fennell, and this is Commission Blogger, and this is my show. Anyways, so all right, so Proverbs 9, it starts with a passage talking about the way of wisdom, and I really enjoyed this. Wisdom. It's talking about wisdom and kind of creating wisdom as a character, so that the reader can understand what wisdom is, who wisdom is, and it kind of make wisdom into something that's tangible and understanding. So the Bible explains, or the book of Proverbs explains, wisdom as a woman. She has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. Now, is there a literal 7 pillars of wisdom? I don't know, but that's what it says. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She is saying, leave your simple ways in verse 6 and live and walk in the way of insight. This is referring to wisdom being a choice. So we have a choice. We can choose to walk in wisdom, or we could choose to be foolish. So this part of moving on, verse 7, this part of chapter 9 goes into explain who you should give wisdom to. So you have obtained wisdom. You're studying your Bible, you're getting knowledge, you're getting understanding, you have the fear of the Lord. Who do you impart your wisdom to? Well, what you do is you reprove a wise man, and he will love you. So there are certain people that you can reprove, that you can correct, that you can say, hey, you're messing up. And the wise man, he's the one who's going to take your correction, and he's going to love you for it. You give instruction to a wise man, and he'll increase in his learning. So you've given instruction, you've reproved, and he will flourish, and he will love you for it. So that's who you give wisdom to. You give wisdom to someone who is wise, someone who has the right heart, someone who is seeking knowledge, seeking wisdom, and doesn't have pride about them. But right in the middle of chapter 9, there is encased the center of wisdom. So the whole, what it says right here, it's what the center of wisdom is. It's the fear of the Lord. We get that in the middle of chapter 9. Now, verse 13 talks about the way of folly. Now, the way of folly is described as a woman. She's loud, seductive. She knows nothing. She sits in high places, and she calls out to entice those who are on a straight path. And her whole purpose is to get attention for herself. Okay, so Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. So this is the middle of Proverbs chapter 9. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. So it talks about wisdom in a way of, okay, so here's how you get wisdom. So it starts out that the way of wisdom is like a woman who built her house. with 7 pillars. She's calculated, and she leaves the simple ways. She is calling for the simple to come into her home and to learn and to seek her. And so you have the way of wisdom, and then the way of folly is like a woman who's seductive and loud and knows nothing and is just a big distraction. And then after that, it explains chapter 9, verse 10, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So that's the beginning of wisdom. Now, chapter 10, it's a Proverbs of Solomon. It's a series of Proverbs in a pattern. So it's a pattern of common sense, if you will, a way of good sense that describes one opposite of another, a positive and a negative. So here's what I mean by that. So if you go to verse 1, a wise son, that's the subject, makes a glad father, that's the resolve. So a wise son makes a glad father. But the opposite, so it's trying to give two perspectives. So there's the positive and then there's a negative. But a foolish son, that's the subject, is a sorrow to his mother. So that's verse 1. So all throughout Proverbs 10, it kind of goes into this, here's the positive and here's the negative. Here's if you do the right thing, here's if you do the wrong thing. So move on to verse 2, treasures gain, that's the subject, by wickedness do not profit, that's the result. So if your treasure is gained by wickedness, you're not going to really profit. You might profit here and now, but eventually you're not going to profit. It's not going to be good to you. You're going to be found out. You're going to be caught. Or even if you never are caught, that guilt is going to eat away at you. But righteousness, that's the subject, delivers from death. That's the result. So the negative, if your treasure is gained by wickedness, so wickedness being what we're talking about, then you won't profit. But if you are righteous, that right there, what you'll profit is you'll be delivered from death. So you're not going to have that weight on your shoulders. So moving on to verse 3, the Lord, that's the subject, does not let the righteous go hungry. That's the resolve. Okay, so the Lord, what does he do? He doesn't let the righteous go hungry. So we must learn to be righteous and live rightly. But righteousness delivers from, sorry. But he, that's the subject, thwarts the craving of the wicked. So that's the negative. So that's the result. Okay, so one more verse, and this one I think it's a really good verse to think about, and it's kind of like a cause and effect. So a slack hand, that's the subject, causes poverty. That's the result. So if you have a slack hand, you're going to cause poverty. But this is the opposite. The hand of the diligent makes one rich. So if you're diligent, it'll make you rich. In whatever you do, if you're diligent with playing the piano, learning how to play the piano, or dancing, or whatever it is, it's going to make you rich in that particular subject. Or it's not necessarily talking about money. However, it could talk about money. Like if you're diligent with your business and you're prudent, then you will prosper. Okay, so that's if the economic structure that you live in is beneficial, will allow you to do that. Okay, so each proverb is written in a way to help give two perspectives in hopes that the reader will understand the difference in both outcomes. One who uses wisdom versus one who is a fool. All right, and what can be applied when using wisdom? It all starts with the fear of the Lord. So let's go on. So if the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, let's apply this to a verse with the basic understanding that we are going to fear the Lord. Now, when you fear the Lord, that means that your whole demeanor, your whole purpose is to please God. You're going to want to please God because you fear the Lord, because God is the ultimate authority, right? You have a reverence and a respect for our God. So here's verse 5. with that perspective in mind. So he who gathers in summer, that's the subject. A person that's a person who. Okay, so here's kind of how I broke this down. Verse 5, he who gathers in the summer, that's the subject. Now we're talking about a person who fears the Lord and what they could ask. How do I glorify God? Right? So using my knowledge that I know that's beneficial to gather in the summer. So he who gathers in the summer, if I fear the Lord, if I have a knowledge and an understanding that summertime is the best time to gather, if I've been giving responsibility, all responsibility is given by God. So us being servants and being stewards of what's been given to us, and us fearing God and wanting to please Him, what's the right decision? So in my mind, as a Christian, I'm going to think it through like, okay, what do I want to do versus what I should do? What I should do is, if I want to be pleasing to the Lord, the time is right now to get in the harvest, to gather in the harvest, which is in the summertime. If it's summertime, that means right now is the time, because I am a good steward, because I want to be pleasing to God, because I want to glorify God. I will do what is in right timing, because I represent the Father, and I'm a steward of my Father's field. I will exercise discretion and work hard to please God, and the result, which is the next the next line, it's a prudent son. So someone who gathers in the summer because they fear the Lord, because they have wisdom, is a prudent son. And so then we move on, and there's but he who sleeps in the harvest, that's the subject. This is a person who has no regard for anybody else except themselves. Someone who doesn't fear the Lord and doesn't look at their own responsibilities as something that they need to have an urgency about, because of it's summertime and it's time for harvest. Someone who's has no fear of the Lord to be a good steward. And then what's the result of this? A person. So he who sleeps in the harvest, the result is a son who brings shame. So what happens? What's the result? You sleep in the harvest. You're not doing your job. You're not taking it serious. You're not being responsible. Well, you're going to bring shame. So that's verse 5. Each proverb could be read over without much thought, but when you break it down, you'll notice that there's a main ingredient to exercising wisdom, and that main ingredient is the fear of the Lord. So wisdom starts with the fear of the Lord, but what follows is blessings, and the remainder of verse 10 continues to go on what a blessed man looks like. If you keep your laws, you will be blessed. If you keep the commandments, you will be blessed. If you have integrity, you will be blessed. If you walk in righteousness, you're blessed. You're a blessing to others. If you walk in love, you're able to mend offenses, which is a blessing. If you walk in understanding, that's something to strive for. You will be blessed. The wise seeks knowledge. So you're prudent, you're wise, you're seeking knowledge, and you're seeking out how to be a good servant, a good steward of the responsibilities that you were given. It's clear that Solomon wants the reader to understand how important it is to seek wisdom. And the best part, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So if you choose to fear the Lord and walk in righteousness and seek knowledge, holding true to integrity, you will be blessed, and you will be a blessing. So I really enjoyed this, especially verse 10, because, well, verse 9 and 10, because 9 kind of says, here's the way of the wise, and here's the way of the folly. But then verse 10 kind of gives a positive and a negative, and through deeper study and just looking at each verse and what it's really saying is there's a central, there's the glue that holds everything together, which is the fear of the Lord. If you could just get that, and if that could be your motivation, which is to fear the Lord, then you're going to want to make different choices and better choices. You're going to want to seek that knowledge because it's something that is obtainable, and it's something that wisdom is crying out and calling out and saying, come and learn and seek me. So that is the central part of wisdom, and that's how you gain wisdom based on chapter 10 of Proverbs. So I really enjoyed this study, and tomorrow we will go over chapter 11 and 12. So, all right. Thank you for watching my video blog. My name is Daniel Fennell, and we'll see you tomorrow.